I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David M. Walker. Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Culture. I'm so excited that you joined me here today. Now, before we get into the conversation, each week I ask you to do me a favor. That's right, I ask you to subscribe to the show. That's right, just click that subscribe button, and that way each week when Beyond the Culture is on, you'll be notified that a new episode has been uploaded and that you can listen to it. Also, BeyondTheCulturePodcast.com, you can get the episode right to your inbox. So go to BeyondTheCulturePodcast.com, and that way each week when a new episode is uploaded, it'll come right to your inbox. Final thing that I ask each week is that I ask you to share the show. That's right, hit that share button and share the show with your friends and your family. If you like Beyond the Culture, I'm sure they will too. Now listen, today I'm having an outstanding conversation. I have a wonderful guest that's here with me today, and her name is Andrea Bolder. Let me tell you a little bit about Andrea. Andrea is a business coach at WomanpreneuHER University. She is a former member of the United States 4x400 relay team that competed in the 2000 Summer Olympics. And of course, she won a gold medal. She's a mom, and when she says, when I'm not running my kids to practice, I'm creating courses and teaching classes inside of WomanpreneuHER University. I'm super excited to have my guest on the show today, Miss Andrea Bolder. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I was just waiting with such anticipation to talk with you because your story is phenomenal. And as I said, you were a former Olympic athlete. You competed at the highest level of athletics. And we want to talk about your story, your Olympic journey. But before we get into that, I just want to start the conversation off with, where you're from and how did you get into sports?
Right. Yeah. So I'm from Long Beach, California, born and raised. And I've always considered myself an athlete. I've always been an athlete. I've never known a time where I didn't think or consider myself as an athlete. I come from an athletic family. My dad played football at the University of Oregon. My mom, she was a cheerleader, which is a sport.
That's right. Yes, it is.
Which is a sport. And all of my uncles played football or basketball, some type of sport as well. And we just grew up in athletics, loving sports, loving the competitive nature of being an athlete. And it's one of those things where it was kind of like in your DNA, and you didn't know that you were supposed to be anything else, but an athlete. You knew that, because your family was into sports, that you were just inherently going to be into sports too. And I can remember my parents always putting us into things, me and my brother and my sister. And we did gymnastics, we did swimming, and we eventually got into track. And it was one of those things where when I stepped out onto the track for the first time, that's when I knew. I said, oh, this is my passion. This is what I'm going to do. So out of all of the different sports that I had kind of tested the water, I was a really good gymnast. I had the opportunity to train with the Bella Caroli Center in Texas when I was, I think, 10 or 11. And at that time, you're like, no, I don't want to leave home. You don't understand that they're trying to set you up for your future. But my parents were like, well, let's find something else for you to do. And they put me in track. And from that point on, it was like love at first sight. And that's how I got into becoming a track and field athlete.
I love what you said, that you found your purpose. And I believe that is the greatest part of life, when you can find what you have been assigned to do. And you found it, in track and field. And I think that's phenomenal. And so now at some point, you become an Olympic athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, but before that, let's talk about your collegiate career a little bit. Let's walk through that first, and then we'll talk about the Olympic athlete.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I ran or come from the long line or legacy of Long Beach Poly athletes who, whether it's football, whether it's track and field, whether it's soccer or softball, baseball, we have a tradition there of championship caliber athletes. So me and a group of other girls, we came into Long Beach Poly and we tore up the place. We
I
set
love it.
records.
Yeah.
We and we changed the dynamic of the track and field program there under the tutelage of Don Norford. And each one of us went on to college. I ended up at UCLA under Jeanette Bolden and Bobby Kersey. Some of the other ladies went to University of Texas and USC. So we all went to high caliber sporting programs. But I landed at UCLA. I absolutely loved it there. It was close to home, but it had everything that I needed. It had not only athletics, but it had the academic side as well, which obviously my parents are really big, and I was really big in academics as well. You got to have both. You can't be an
Sure.
athlete and then not, and then not have the academic side in our household. So I landed at UCLA and I came in actually as a 100 and 200 meter specialist, but I ended up after an injury going or transitioning into, I believe my sophomore year, transitioning into my junior year, I had an injury and I scaled or moved up to the 400 meters. And then that's where I found my sweet spot. And I love it or hate it. It's one of those, it's one of those that you love to watch, but you hate running
Sure.
type of events because it just hurts so bad. But that was my event. And I took hold of it and I said, I'm going to become the very best 400 meter runner that I can. And I took that all the way to the Olympics. So I had the opportunity to train with some phenomenal athletes, be mentored, or UCLA is known for their legacy with Jeanette Bolden, who was the head coach at the time. Bobby Kersey, he would come in every once in a while and train us up. We had Gail Devers and of course Jackie Joyner Kersey.
Yeah.
So we had access to a lot of mentorship and how to win because we had examples around us all of the time. So that was one of the things that I think that at UCLA, I was able to get that really propelled and pushed me forward.
You mentioned Bob Kersey, and of course, if you mention Bob Kersey, and then you mention, I believe it's his sister Jackie Joyner Kersey.
Yeah, Jackie is his wife.
Oh, that's his wife. All right. I get it wrong.
Sister-in-law is Florence.
Right. And I had that here, and I said I'm going to mess this up every time. So
yes,
I go. So Jackie was Bob's wife.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then Al Joyner was Jackie's brother.
Yes.
And Al was married to Florence Griffith Joyner, who we know as FloJo.
Yes.
But then I was just super excited to knowing that you knew all of these people because they're legendary in track and field. And then you go and add another name, Gail Devers.
Yeah.
So you have been around the upper echelon of track and field. And of course, even though these names are well known, your name is up there too because you're somebody.
Yeah, I am somebody. No.
You are somebody. So you make it to the Olympics, but I want to ask you this question: when did you actually know you had Olympic talent and that you had Olympic level talent? That's what I really want. When did you know that I have Olympic level talent and I'm going for it? When did you know that?
And not to sound cocky, but I think that I always knew that in whatever it was that I was going to do, I was going to be the best and be able to get to the top.
Right.
And I don't know if that's what, the confidence that my parents instilled in us. I'm the type of personality that if I set my mind to something, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be the best. So I never had that aha moment where I was like, oh, I can really do this. I just always knew that I would do this and eventually get there if I worked hard. And that's what I did every single day in every single way, from middle school through club track, through high school, college, into the pros. I always had that mindset of whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to go out and I'm going to win. Even in practice, I'm trying to get to the first on the line, the first past the line. And I knew that if I had that spirit or carried that spirit with me, that I would one day become an Olympian. So it was just always in me. I had that spirit. Obviously, when you're watching the Olympics and you're seeing FloJo breaking records, and you're seeing African-American women, Black women who look like you, who are out there and blazing, the path, you're like, oh my goodness, I want to be a part of that. But I just kind of always knew that one day I would get there. I would get there.
So you're about to make the Olympic team. Walk us through what happened and how did you make the team? What's the story behind that?
Ooh, that story. So we had trials. They were in Sacramento, and I had actually taken an entire semester off. I was still in college at the time, and I had taken a semester off to train. Actually, it might have been 2 semesters off to train. And we moved to Florida, and we trained there under Bobby Kersey. And our sole goal and focus was to somehow, some way get on that Olympic team. So we get to trials. I was running the 200 and the 400, obviously with the 400 being my main event. And I got into the finals. I was in lane 1, and it was kind of we had a game plan. We had, this is what you're supposed to do. And I got out there, and I felt like I was ready to tear up that track. I was like, this is my opportunity. This is what I've been working for years, since I was, 10, 11 years old. And the gun goes off, and we're running the race, and we get to the 300-meter mark, and I'm like looking around, and I don't see anybody. I'm like, oh, I'm in first place. And then I don't know what happened. That last 100 meters was the longest 100 meters of my life. I went from like first to 6th or 7th.
Wow.
And it was one of those things that was like devastating, because you're running and you're winning, and then you're losing. Mm-hmm. And you don't know how to recover from that in the last, 12 seconds of a race. And my coach was so upset. I was so upset. And I'm just like, well, what happened? He was like, well, you didn't follow the game plan. I was like, but I did. And you told me to do this. He was like, I didn't tell you to do that. So it was just one of those chaotic moments where it just happened. And you're just like, I have no idea what happened, but let me hope and pray that someone saw that I did well enough to make it into the 4x400 meter relay pool. They chose me as an alternate for the relay. So I was praising the Lord, saying, thank you, Jesus, for getting me. I was actually an Olympian and on the team. And we went over to Australia. We were actually there for about 30 plus days before the Olympics ever began. And I had no idea whether I was going to run, whether I was going to be on the team, have the opportunity to run a heat and run a final. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was just, I was in a holding period. So, you train for these moments to be ready. So, you're prepared when they call your number, and it's like, let's go. So the night before the prelims or the heats, the coaches knock on our door, and it's me, and there's 2 other young ladies there who are also alternates. Okay. So they knocked on our door, they bring us outside, and they say, tomorrow, get ready, we're going to have a runoff. So this was 2 or 3 days before the actual heats of the 4x400 meter. Whoever wins, you get your spot on the team, okay, to be able to run. So it was like, okay. So we show up at the track, and We have all of our teammates and other, girls from different events. We're out there. Our coaches are out there. And I'm just like, you know what? This is my Olympics right here. This is a make or break. I'm either going to run and win, or, I'm sitting on the sideline watching everybody else run. So I ran. It was me and another young lady who the last 75 meters, it was, neck and neck. And I said, this is not going to happen to me again. And I dug so deep, and I just said, and I just kept telling myself those last 75 meters, just, this is your race. This is your race. This is your race. This is your race. And I crossed that finish line. I pulled away, crossed that finish line first. And I think I had run like the fastest I had ever run in my life. And I had secured my spot on the team, on the relay. They put me in the prelims, and the rest is history. So it was one of those things where that practice race, or that runoff, it wasn't a practice race, it was a runoff. That was my Olympics. That was my Olympics right there. My whole Olympic experience was wrapped up in that 50 seconds that I ran trying to get on that relay team.
So now you've made it to the Olympic team. Tell me, how did that feel? I want to get there first. How did that feel? I am now an Olympic athlete. How did that feel?
Yeah, I think I was crying.
Okay.
I was so, because you're so happy, you're so overjoyed, you're so emotional, and it's a lot of pressure as well. You have to, in that moment, be ready to compete, and you have to be ready to win, to go after what it is that you say that you want, that you've been dreaming of all of your life. And it's not that you necessarily may want it more than anybody else. The other girls probably wanted to be on the team just as much as I did.
Sure.
They wanted to be able to run for gold just as much as I did. But I think it's one of those moments where you finally realize that all the things that you've been working so hard to achieve, they come together in this small moment that can change the trajectory of your life. And in that moment, I was just grateful. I was like, thank you for giving me the affirmation, or the reassurance that I'm doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And that moment was a glimpse of, I know that I am chasing my passion. I'm doing what it is that I'm doing, and now it's paying off.
That's a feeling that I wish everyone could actually feel. It's your dreams and your wishes and your goals coming to pass.
Yes.
You've put in the hard work, you put in the time and the dedication, and sometimes there's obstacles, ups and downs.
Absolutely.
And you have to overcome obstacles, but you make it, you get there. And of course, you're thanking God, you're thanking all of your supporters, everyone who believed in you, even when you may not have believed in yourself.
Right.
And that's just an experience that I'm sure you, as well as I, wish that everyone could experience, arriving to your point of destiny and to the place that you have been called, to get to. And so now you have made it. You're an Olympic athlete. You're on the team. This is the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia. So I know you got a passport.
Yes, I did.
I know you got a passport.
Actually, I don't think I actually had a passport before I had gone to the trials. Okay. But when you make the team, for whatever reason at that time, they were like, okay, sign these papers. And I had my passport in like 2 weeks. Wow. So before we left, I had a passport. Okay. So I was good to go, because I wasn't prepared.
Wow. So you're at the Olympics, and your team, that 4x400 relay team, wins the gold medal.
Yes.
You come in first. You competed in the preliminaries, and then you ran in the semifinals. And so you win the gold medal. You are awarded a medal with all of your teammates, and life goes on.
Yes.
You're living in the glory of the gold. You're telling your story, but something gets added to your Olympic journey, your Olympic gold medal win. Share that story with us.
So many years later, we start hearing rumblings that one of the team members, you may be familiar with her name, Marion Jones, had tested positive for and at the time, it wasn't necessarily even a banned substance. It was like this mystery substance that some lab, I think it was Balco, had created, and it was this whole big thing. And she was mixed up in it, which of course now everybody was at the point where, well, and at that time, I think she was going for 5 medals. I think she was going for the 1 and the 2 individual, both of the relays, and the long jump. So she was trying to get, medal in 5 different events. And going into that Olympics, we all knew what the mission was. It was, let's help our star athlete get these medals. And that was kind of the vibe. And which is fine. We're all there to win. We want to see her win. We want to see her represent the United States. We want to be a winning delegation. But when we get home, years later, it comes to pass that once they kind of went through all of these trials and tribulations, and the news broke about Balco and all of these illegal substances and things of that nature, that she was directly tied to that scandal, which put our medals, or everything that we had done in that Olympics, in jeopardy. So they went on to try to negate the results from the Olympics, or all of the events that she had run in. And obviously she had run the finals in the 4x400 meter relay. So that affects all of the relay team members, including the members on the 4x100 meter relay as well.
Wow.
So we had to get representation, or actually we were presented with representation on how to fight this. And it took a couple of years for us going back and forth with, I think, like the IOC, and hearings and delegations. And some people wanted to be a part of it, some people didn't. But it was one of those things where you go, you share your story, you try to find out how you can keep everything that you've worked so hard for. Obviously, at that time, I was not running anymore. I was a biotech consultant, so I used my UCLA degree to then get a corporate job. But I remember for like every day for about 2 or 3 months, I would be on the phone during work with a group of girls who, and our lawyer at the time, who was trying to fight to keep our medals, right? And it was one of those long, drawn out processes. But at the end of the day, we ended up being able to, they granted us the, I don't want to say the opportunity, but they ruled in our favor that we should be able to keep and secure our medals. So that's where we ended up. We were able to keep our results, keep our medals. And I don't want to say it went away, but it kind of, from there on, it just was one of those things. Obviously, Marion, there were some things that she had to go through, legally, that prevented her, I believe, from continuing on in the sport the way that she should. But yeah.
But originally they had disqualified the team.
They did.
Right. So they disqualified the team, and because of the situation, because of the illegal drugs, and I think it actually went into the record of disqualification. But then you had legal representation.
So we appealed.
You appealed it. That's right.
Appeal the initial decision for them to strip our medals.
Right.
So that was the appeal process.
Right. And it's called the Court of Arbitration ruled in your favor.
Court of Arbitration, absolutely.
That you should keep those medals, and you had nothing to do with what your teammate had done.
Yes, exactly. So we had gone through this process. There were, you know, there's testimony. I think one of the ladies actually went to, I believe it's Sweden or somewhere over there. I can't remember exactly where it is, but somewhere in Europe, where they have this court of arbitration where they look over. You basically are going into a trial. So she represented us as a whole, but yeah. So they ended up ruling in our favor, thanks to a lot of hard work from a lot of supportive people, and we were able to secure our medals and keep our names on the record books. So
what kind of life lesson did you learn from that experience? I mean, I'm sure that was, I mean, I can't imagine. I'm not going to try to imagine, but what was your life lesson from that entire experience? And then how have you used it going forward?
yeah, I think the biggest lesson was that even if they take away the trophies, what you have accomplished in your life, what you have fought for, what you have done to help serve, or whether that's through entertainment or through being a coach or through being an athlete, that is what really matters. And it's the accomplishment, not the jewelry or the ring or the trophy or the accolade. That is what you're striving for. You're striving for the accomplishment, for the moment, for that feeling that we talked about earlier of, I really did something that only a small percentage of people in the world ever get a chance to experience. And one way or another, it didn't matter to me that there was a possibility that I could not have my name in the record books. In my heart, I knew what I did.
Sure.
And that was what counted. So in life, even when you win and then find out that sometimes you got to lose on the back of that win, it's how do you keep going and being thankful for the things that you have accomplished. And I think that is the lesson that I've learned through that process.
You know, that sounds like the right perspective about life, because so many people put it on the trophy. It's all about the ultimate goal. Yeah, we all want trophies on our, on the shelf, right? We all want rings on the finger. But that is not what's most important about life. Of course, it's always about learning. It's always about how are you going to respond in your most difficult moments? What's going to be your reaction? How will you come through? And here's something else, and you're doing it right now with this audience. How can you help someone else with what they're going through based on what happened to you? Because we all experience similar scenarios and situations. And sometimes what you go through is not just for you, but it's for someone else too.
Absolutely. Yes. And I've had so many people come up and say, I saw you on TV and I saw you run and you gave me inspiration to continue running or continue having the confidence to work through. I was going to quit, but then I saw you and then I kept going. And those are the moments that are more important, that are more impactful than coming home and showing somebody that you won a gold medal, because it's the journey that people are following. They're invested in your story. They're invested in, I have people, especially in Long Beach and coming from Long Beach Poly, who have been following me since club track.
Wow.
And when I got to the Olympics, they were like, I always knew you were going to make it. And your story is so awesome. But people are looking and they're following and they're getting inspiration and they're telling stories about you to their kids and to their loved ones in the hopes that it would be an example that other people can follow on. This is how you can get from point A to point Z, even with all the obstacles. This is what, if you keep trying, if you keep working hard, this is what can happen. So it's just an example. And I think a lot of times we miss that point where everybody's looking for the win at the end. They're looking for the gold or the championship ring, but it's really about the journey. That is the gold right there.
I love that. You just said, it's not about the win, it's about the journey. I love that. We're going to tweet that right there. We're going to tweet that. It's not about the win, but it's about the journey. Now, if I could bring things up to today, you are a business coach at WomanpreneuHER University.
Yes.
And I want you to talk about that because you have been inspired to help women in their journey, in their finances, in their successes. I want you to talk about the business and actually how are you helping other women to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the seeds of being an athlete have helped me to transition into entrepreneurship. In between becoming an entrepreneur, and my parents are entrepreneurs. They have their own real estate company. Both of my grandparents have been entrepreneurs. They've always owned their own business. So I did know that one day I would eventually be a business owner. I just didn't know what that looked like. I always thought I was just going to be an athlete, you know? So
Like most of us, right? Like
yes,
most
like
of
most of us,
it.
right? We don't have that long-term game plan. I knew I wasn't necessarily going to run forever, but in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm just an athlete. That's what I'm going to do. And when that doesn't happen, or when things pivot, I could have sworn that I was going to be in at least 2 more Olympics. It didn't happen. Life changes, things happen, and you find yourself in a place where you have to make some decisions on how you're going to earn a living, how are you going to take care of yourself, how are you going to replace the passion that you had in sports with something else. And it was a difficult journey. Thankfully, at UCLA, I was able to get my degree in biochemistry. So I was able to get a job as a biotech account manager at one of the top, it was not a pharmaceutical company. We serve pharmaceutical companies, but it is a chromatography company, a biotech company. So I was a sales and account manager for a company called Phenomenex, but it just did not fill me up like being an athlete did. And every single day I would come to work and I would literally be angry or crying or just like, what is going on with my life? And I think that's a lot, if that's a big transition or a big thing that a lot of athletes, especially former athletes, have to deal with, is you've known sports all of your life. When that ends, now what do I do? How do I make that transition? How do I find something that I'm so passionate about that I would, die for? As an athlete,
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
your life. Everything that you do is surrounded around elevating your performance and becoming this optimal athlete. So I spent about 10 years at that company. And then when I got married and had my son, I said, okay, this is my chance to do something different. I have an excuse now to leave. So just on a whim, I said, I'm going to start my own business. And I had dabbled in a few entrepreneurial ventures before. I had real estate. I had things that I was doing in like direct sales and just other things that I was doing. I said, okay, this is my opportunity. This is my escape route. So I began when I was on maternity leave to transition into becoming my own boss. And as I embarked on that journey, I felt that spark again. And that spark led me into now, many years later, growing and building and helping other women who have a passion and they want to turn that into passive income or into a business, but they don't necessarily know how to start. They don't know how to launch it. They don't know how to grow it. They don't know how to brand themselves. They don't know how to scale their business into the multiple 6 and 7 figures. So everything that I learned, because I was starting from scratch. My parents didn't have a online business, and they still ask me, well, what do you do, baby? So it's one of those things where I took my expertise from how I built my business online, leveraging internet marketing and strategies, online marketing strategies, that I then began to teach what I had learned to other women so that they could turn their ideas into profitable digital products, online courses and coaching programs. And regardless of what background or what niche that you're in or what your passion is, we all know something that someone else wants to learn. So my goal or my mission was to help people understand that you may have a job over here, you may have other things that you're interested in, but you can also build a business and have that business turn into something that you can build or create financial security and stability on your own terms. And that is my goal with Womanpreneur University. And it's geared toward online womenpreneurs, or what I call women entrepreneurs, with the emphasis on her, and learning how to, or teaching them how to launch, brand, grow, and scale their businesses to six-figure success, and to do it passively.
Well, first of all, I love the fact that you emphasize the her at the end of entrepreneur, because I always feel like women, especially Black women, need to have role models and mentors, right in front of them. There needs to be an emphasis on their needs and their desires, because a lot of times we know that the world gives us all different types of representation, right. And usually success comes from what we see. You know what I'm saying? What we see, what we view that's in front of us. And that's why it's so important to have, of course, people of all cultures in certain positions. But of course, as African Americans, we need that. We need great representation, and your focus on women. And I think that that's just an outstanding approach to, the needs that women have, that you can be successful. You could be a mom, right. You can be a wife, and you can still be a successful businesswoman.
Absolutely.
And I think that, and I know that that's exactly what you're doing. As we begin to bring this conversation to a close, and this is an outstanding conversation, and for those of you who may be just joining us, I am having a conversation with former Olympic athlete, gold medalist from the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia, Andrea Bolder. But Andrea, let me ask you this, because I always ask this question of my guests. I call it the challenge and change question. Because, our show is Beyond the Culture, where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. So let me ask you, I know you said a lot, but where would you say that you have embraced change and you challenged, traditional norms, and you've kind of gone at them and made sure that you've made a difference?
Well, I think that just in the work that I do now, people are so, and I don't want to say brainwashed, but they're so used to following a certain path. Right. You go to school, you go through high school, get your degree. If you're lucky enough and you work hard and study hard, you get to go to college. Then from college, you go on to secure some type of corporate job. And I think in today's society, more than ever, we're learning that there's not just one path to success. There's not one path to happiness. There's not one path to joy. There's not one path to purpose or serving other people. And I think that what I've been able to do is to really take my time in finding what lights me up. And not settling for things that don't bring me joy, don't bring me passion, don't allow me to serve or use my gifts in the way that I know that God intended me to. And did I see my path as an online business coach? Absolutely not. I saw myself as an athlete, and then potentially as, a doctor with my biotech degree, because that was the path that if you have a chemistry or biochemistry degree, then logically you're going to become a doctor. But none of those things, not the athlete part, but the becoming the doctor, doing the corporate, none of those things lit me up. And I think that it's okay to deviate from the norm. Right. It's okay to set your own path. Now, whether you fail or whether you win, there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but are you following your passion? Are you following your purpose? And I believe that in all of us, if we truly follow our passion, truly follow that purpose that's put into our hearts, that's put into our spirits, that you can monetize that, because there's other people that will want to know how you're doing what it is that you're doing. But it's having the confidence and the courage to say, I don't know where this path is going to lead me, but I'm going to take it anyways. And then challenging anyone who says that you can't make it, challenging anyone who says, well, that's not the path that you're supposed to be taking, or I thought that you should be taking, or that is traditional. And that is okay. It's okay if other people believe that being an employee or having a job, a 9-to-5 job, that works for a lot of people. But for those where it doesn't, or if you're called to do something different or a hybrid of either of the two, then that is okay too. So I want to express to everyone that if you have an idea, if you have a calling, it's seated in you and it's planted in you for a reason. And it's up to us to explore that. Now, one way or another, whether it works or whether it doesn't, it's giving yourself the opportunity to explore the possibilities that can change your life. And it can change the life and how you serve and impact others. So I encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast to know that if you have an idea, if you have a spark, if you have a passion that is not the norm, that deviates from what people think that you should be doing, it is okay to explore alternative paths, because you never know when you open that door, where that's going to lead you. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Andrea, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. Your story is so inspiring. Your career is inspiring, and I don't know how anyone can listen to you and not be inspired. And I really appreciate that you came on the show today. But before we close, just give us your social media information or where people can contact you.
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me on my website at andreabolder.com. I am on Instagram at Andrea Bolder. You can also find me on Facebook at you can search Andrea Bolder. I believe it's andrea.l.bolder. And then I have the Womanpreneur Facebook group, which is a community of female entrepreneurs where we nurture and help and grow and mentor ladies who are interested in launching, branding, growing, and scaling their business to 6 figures. And you can go to facebook.com/groups/womanpreneur. So that's where you can find me online.
Thank you, Andrea. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And as I say to all of my guests, you have gone beyond the culture, and I thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David M. Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.